So we are here again on a Thursday, and it's a Thursday where pants are optional. That's your choice. We have Maureen Bausch and Joe Pine here as our guests, and we're going to be having a really fascinating conversation. You probably know Maureen from the Super Bowl, very iconic from that, and running the Mall of America. There's a bunch of stories to go with that, I'm sure. And Joe Pine, I count as a friend of mine, and I also can attribute the starting of Capsule as one of the inspiration points was Joe Pine and his book, The Experience Economy. And I can tell you a story that goes with that actually is going to be in the next Twin Cities Business Magazine. It's something I wrote about. When we first started this firm and we came out, we said, we're going to start an experience design firm. This is in 1999. And we'd have conversations with people. And I can remember one specifically with Steve Buolo at Byerly's and Lunds when we were doing the rebrand. And I said to him, you should do an experience guidelines, you know, the designed experience of Byerly's. And he looked at me and said, what are you trying to sell me? I do not get it. And it was that moment that I realized that we were way out in front of what was going to happen, but wasn't happening yet. And Joe sparked that revolution of the experience economy, or at a minimum identified it so everyone could see it and then start to come to realize it. And of course, he's been in our book. And anyway, and I give him high praise wherever I possibly can. So that's a little bit. And then a little mention for our sponsor, which would be Capsule and our special projects team here in the North Loop in downtown Minneapolis, which still has a few people down here and getting a few more every day, which is nice to see. We are a team of researchers, writers, designers, and strategists, and we solve interesting, complex problems for clients, and we're always looking for new opportunities to do that. So if you know of one, please send that our way. And we have a special guest, a super special guest. My co-host is back just for this particular event. The great one, Kitty Hart, is here. She is hanging out with us, asking questions. She got very versed in her decade here at Capsule in the world of experience design. And so she seemed like the perfect co-host as Kelly is on vacation this week. And so she's going to step in and help us challenge these two with some really interesting questions. So that's all I have, unless I missed something, Kitty, in your world.
No, I think that's good. Thank you for having me. Happy to be here. Always happy to jump in and co-host, and particularly excited to talk about this particular topic because you know how passionate I am about the discipline of experience design. So really excited to be part of the conversation this morning, and fun to see all of these faces pop up on the screen. So great to see so many people that I've definitely had interaction with over the last few years that I've been gone from Capsule, but good to see you all here. So
cool.
Let's go.
Great. I'm going to hand it over to Maureen so she can give a little bit more detailed background. So not just the Mall of America and the Super Bowl, not too small incidents in your life, but I'd love to hear some current stuff and then just other background that you'd like to share, and then we'll hand it to Joe as well.
Great. Well, I as you know, I spent about 35 years in retail. My first 13 were at Cub Foods, and my last 25 were at actually that's more than 35, I guess, at Mall of America.
We don't have to do numbers. Let's not do numbers.
No, it will tell my age. And then I went to the Super Bowl. And then I actually, after the Super Bowl, it was all about creating experiences in each of those positions. I held a number at Mall of America, but it was always around business development, which involved creating a rich and different experience every time we could keep it fresh and new. And then after the Super Bowl, which was all about creating an experience for guests, I went to Mayo Clinic for a little over a year, and they were short a chief marketing officer, and I stepped in that role for about 14 months. And again, it was an experience, the experience of going to a physician and how it's going to change in the future. So it was very interesting. And now I'm actually, during COVID, working for a nonprofit that is helping people, children particularly, who are food insecure and who get their meals, 50% of them through schools. And we're at depression level hunger issues right now. So it is, we provide the equipment to schools so that they can serve the food safely to kids, whether they're in the building or whether they're at home. So it's probably the most important job I've ever held. But it's timely, and I have a little consulting business, Bold North Associates, with some Super Bowl people that we worked with, and this is our client that we're working with today. But we're normally in the business of creating retail and attraction experiences, but today we're helping hungry children. So I'm glad to be here. Thank you. And I've always been a fan of Joe, and I've followed him through the years, and he's been a great guidepost to so many things I've done. And so I'm excited to be on this panel with you.
Wonderful. Joe, I only have 5 minutes for you, but you've got a lot to share.
Well, I mentioned, Maureen, I'll thank you for, you may not remember this, but inviting me and my family to the 10th anniversary celebration of the Mall of America, where we went up to the roof to be able to see fireworks at eye level, which is I've had it when I was at MIT. We were over the river, the Charles River there, could see the main fireworks of Boston at eye level as well. And it's a completely different experience. I mean, just like things exploding at you, that's wonderful. So thank you for that. My family loved it. So, so I'll say, I started out as very much of a nerd. I aspired to be a geek, but I was really a nerd, and worked at IBM Rochester for 10 years, but helped the AS400 computer system way back when really embrace customer centricity and bring customers into the development process, which led to my first work on mass customization. They did send me to MIT for a year to get my master's degree. So I decided to turn my thesis into my first book. And I did that while still working at IBM out on the East Coast in the IBM consulting group. And so then after mass customization came out, I left IBM in 1993 to start my own firm out of my house, and took on a couple of partners eventually in Cleveland, came up with the concept of the experience economy. Actually, not just in 99, it was actually late 1993 that it sort of hit me that experiences were a distinct economic offering, therefore there'd be an experience economy. And then that led to the book with my partner, Jim Gilmore, in 1999, which we re-released for the third time, or re-released for the third time earlier this year with a new subtitle on competing for customer time, attention, and money, and a preview that focuses on that. In between, worked on books on authenticity, on another one on mass customization called Markets of One, on a book called Infinite Possibility, Creating Customer Value in the Digital Frontier, about fusing the real and the virtual. And then what we do is do a lot of speaking, teaching, consulting around the world, or at least normally around the world. Although I had the opportunity one day last month to speak in Amsterdam and Copenhagen on the same day, and because I could do it remotely.
Love that. Thank you, Joe. That was great. Kitty, do you want to start us off with the first question for our guests?
Yep, absolutely. So I will pose this first question, but first of all, acknowledging the fact that we are all probably really tired of talking about COVID and this horrendous situation that we're in right now, but unfortunately it affects everything and we are all affected by it. So I'm really curious about, Maureen and Joe, what you're working on right now today that you had no idea you would be working on six months ago. because just of how much the world has changed in 6 months. What we're working on today, we probably never thought we would be working on. What, Maureen, you mentioned a little bit about the food insecurities, but I'm curious if you could both dig into that a little bit, because we've all had to make big changes over the last few months. What is it for you right now?
Well, most of my clients prior to COVID were in the retail and attraction space, and their lives have changed completely. I mean, you know, they were closed. Many of them were just closed. And so one of the things I do is help. How do you open? How do you open and welcome people back? I never thought that we'd be dealing with a completely closed environment. And we've dealt with a lot through the years, 9/11 and different huge issues, recessions and so on. But this is very unusual too. Everybody is reopening and doing it under completely new guidelines. But truly, my main work is fundraising, which I didn't know I'd be doing. Yeah, Joe.
Well, you know, one of the great joys in life over the last 10 years was stop having to defend the experience economy. You know, people stopped. I no longer had to argue, right? I just had to say it. If I would say that, you know, goods and services are enough, that what consumers are looking for are experiences, and people will go, oh, I get that, right? Okay, I see that, and which was a wonderful thing. I used to 20 years ago, I really have to argue with people about this going on. Well, now I don't have to argue about it, but it's like now people think it's the death of the experience economy, you know, that which is really not the case. As Maureen pointed out, though, it is the experience sector of the economy that has been most hard hit, because any place people want to gather is a place no one wants to be right now, because of what's going on. So, but it's important to understand that without a recovery of the experience sector, there is no recovery of the overall global economy, because that's the part that's been hit. And that's the part that employs so many more people today, that is so much a bigger part of the GDP. So if the experience economy doesn't come back, then the economy itself cannot come back. And that's a key thing. So I have been working on helping companies think about how they go about doing this. I wrote a point of view piece that basically had three things that during this time, and it came out like, you know, six or 8 weeks ago, but, you know, during this time that we have, which is starting to open up finally, but still, you know, there's basically three things we ought to be doing. And one is to refresh our places. You know, take this time so that when we do reopen, we do come back, that it looks fresh, it looks sparkling, it gives just this wonderful first impression of the place. And then second, we need to redesign our offerings. That now's the time to really go beyond normal goods and services, to really shift into the experience economy. And then third is to renew our capabilities, is to add new capabilities. And obviously the pivot to contactless takeaway, to online ordering, and to digital overall is a big part of that renewing the capabilities. I've also just wrote an article on for the first time on employee experiences. I've always applied it and I always thought about it, but I've never taken the time really to do that, which was nice to have.
That's a great one. I was going to go down a different question, but I'll save that for later. I'm curious, yeah, the employee experience. Tell me more about that, because that is the next iteration of the concept of the experience economy. And can you go a little bit deeper on that, Joe?
Yeah, well, the basic notion is that if you want your employees to create a great experience for your customers, well, then you'd better create a great experience for them. You've got to give them the wherewithal to be able to do that. And all of the models, all the frameworks for doing it with customers actually do apply to employees. One new model we put in the new re-release of the book is this time progression, and you can see this related to employees, that you know, services are about time well saved, And experiences are about time well spent. And so what, you know, and so with customers and with employees, how do you save their time in getting to do things? You know, like simple as submitting expenses. Submitting expenses should be like that. You think about all of the apps that we have, the Uber and the Lyft and Fiverr and Venmo and all these things that make things happen almost instantly. Well, we need all of that. We need that consumerization in employees to stop wasting their time. And that's the bottom level of the model, is that first you got to stop wasting time, then you provide time well saved. And then once you save people time, then on top of that, you can provide the time well spent of experiences. So, and here with employees, we use the same construct again we introduced, creating experiences that are robust, cohesive, personal, dramatic, and even transformative. And I'll give you one example on cohesive, right? So cohesive we talk about is the theme of the experience. You know, all experiences need a theme. It doesn't have to be as in your face as Disney World or as theme restaurants rather, or as fantasy like Disney World, but it's the organizing principle for the experience. So Whirlpool Corporation, for example, they've had for 20 years now a new sales training experience that has worked absolutely wonderful for them. That they modeled it after the old TV program on MTV called Real World, you know, where you take all these young people, you put them in a house, you don't let them leave, and you film all the interactions. So they named it Real World, WHIRLED, for Whirlpool. And then they bought a condominium complex. They housed their trainings in a condominium complex. They don't pay for meal expenses. Why? They have to cook their own meals using Whirlpool appliances. They don't pay for laundry expenses. They have to use their own appliances.
I love
You
that.
can film it and you walk away with your appearance on Real World. And retention has gone up over 50% as a result of doing it that way. And it came from that theme of Real World, which then provides a cohesive experience. And so you can go through all of those things, say, okay, what does this mean? For L&D, for HR, for how we interact, for what managers do, and so forth. And the last one I'll mention too is very important, is transformative. Dan Wallace, who I know you know very well, Aaron, already
heard of him.
Author, already put a question out there on the chat about transformations, which in fact are the economic offering after experiences. So, you know, we got commodities, goods, services, experiences. Well, then transformations, or we use experiences as a raw material to guide people to change, to help them achieve their aspiration. And whether it's fitness centers, whether it's management consulting, whether it's coaching of any kind, healthcare, as Maureen mentioned, I've worked a ton in healthcare over the last 15, 20 years. And I always say it's because research shows that the better the patient experience, the better the outcome. And that's what it's all about, the outcome. That's what transformations are about, that you get the outcome. Inputs don't matter. Only the outcome. And that's a very important thing that we need to provide to employees as well. We need to help them achieve their career aspirations, the goals that they have with their job, as well as our own as an employer. You know, how do we need our employees to grow? What skills and capabilities and knowledge that they need to have? And so you think of L&D really as a talent agency that needs to think transformatively, that think about the experiences and how they transform people, which really provide time well invested. Right? Time well invested, that we invest our time in these experiences that are going to pay compound interest with dividends that pay now and into the future.
If you've, for the audience, if you've read our book, The Physics of Brand, and Dan Wallace, co-author, when I say
who had 19 minutes in for the first time Aaron would mention his book?
Who had it? 19? You mentioned Dan Wallace. I can't help it. But you talk about time as much, right? Time and space, the two major components of the book. It's a fascinating way to look at the experiences, and the fact that a sector has to move through the service economy to get to the experience economy. You can't just jump to the experience economy, which is an interesting perspective, right?
They build a time.
Yeah. So Maureen, at Mayo, how were they doing it there? What did you see when you were there? I'm curious from an outsider looking in at Mayo, because it's such an iconic brand, such a loved brand.
Their experience with the doctor is impeccable. Their experience is absolutely, there is no finer experience in medicine than visiting with a Mayo doctor in a Mayo clinic. It's wonderful, and you rarely hear anything. So we were working on before the experience. What's it like to make an appointment? What's it like to travel, and so on and so forth. Because if you can get to that golden circle, it was wonderful. And that included some things in Rochester too, or in other, their Florida location, their Arizona location, and so on. So, but when Joe was talking, this was such a wonderful 4 months to retrain your employees and upskill them, and with technology, take away some of the burden that the protocols and things that cause them to be not the greatest, service oriented. And we find that on every project we work. If we can look into the protocols that employees are required and take some of those away, they will be happier, and thus the experience will be better. And we did this at Mall of America, just a really quick story, and it was about 7 years ago. We couldn't figure out why the guest service people behind the counters were not nice. Whether you bought it, they were wonderful people, and yet they were very mechanical in the way they dealt with customers. And so we did a deep dive and realized, of course, training was an issue, but that we had them doing so many checks and balances just to buy a gift card. They didn't want to sell them. So we took a lot of those away. We empowered the employees. We said, make somebody happy, because if people leave our building happier than they came, we've succeeded. Any way you can, do it. And it was a world of difference. We had happier employees. They felt empowered. They could give people ride tickets if they were unhappy. They could do this and that. And it was a lot easier for them to sell gift cards. So I always look deep into what we're requiring of employees. And one more example, and technology can make their life so easy. But the other night, my husband and I went to a restaurant in St. Paul, and I'm not going to name it, but as we walked in, I had my mask on and he didn't. So he was sent back to the car by the hostess. Couldn't walk through an outdoor patio without the mask, which I get. That I think that's really important. But we sat down and they said, snap the QR code on the table and order your meal. Well, we've never done that before. And the way an employee communicates that could have made us feel very progressive, but instead we walked out feeling like idiots because we ordered, we thought we did it right, we put in our credit card, the waiter was never seen again, and we forgot to push send. So we sat there for an hour and a half and the food didn't come because we didn't do the last step. And then finally we realized, but they didn't, we waved someone down and they said, oh, push send. And okay. So, I mean, you can't just assume, and to train an employee, even though they don't want to touch you, they don't want to come near you, they can barely bring the food to you. We could have walked out of that restaurant saying, this is so cool. And we were able to do it. And now we can do it again somewhere else. Instead, we walked out feeling very, very stupid and probably won't go back. Yeah. So employees make a difference still, even with technology.
Yeah, there's a lot of that going on out there. Kitty, I can tell you've got a question.
Well, it reminds me, one of the things that I've been fascinated watching is just human behavior and how, we're all dealing with the fact that, it's mask, no mask, that whole debate. And, those who wear them are doing what they're supposed to be doing and others are not. And, so the opinions and the biases that come with that, and then how you're treated. But I have also noticed that when I'm in public spaces and I'm wearing my mask, people will not make eye contact with each other. And it's like this head down, get in, get out sort of thing. And so I feel like we've moved into this very impersonal You know, we hear a lot of conversation around alone together. That was all very much, you know, when people are like this all the time,
Right.
and you observe groups of people, they're all looking at their phone. That was when we started talking about this concept of alone together. But now it's taken on a whole nother level, because now we've put masks on and now we don't make eye contact with each other. So I'm curious to see the evolution of that. And so as we think about recovery and how brands create spaces that people will feel comfortable coming in, what sort of advice do you have for doing that right? And have you seen brands put things into physical spaces and do it well, that make people come in and feel comfortable, and want to go back again? Because that's what we all need. We need those spaces to do it right, do it with design intention, not just throw something up, but do it, you know, with well-designed solutions that we want to interact with.
Well, I'll tell you, I haven't. What is that? But I have not seen anybody do that well, because I haven't been out anywhere to see whether they do it well or not. You know, is been very few places. But it's exactly right in what you say. It is about being intentional and about bringing, you know, the same principles of experience design to play, even if you have to make everything 6 feet apart and so forth. You know, I think that the places that, for example, have put circles on the ground. I saw that I did go out to a Lowe's once for working on our house here, and they had like these things on the floor that says, okay, this is where to stand, and it's a good cue of where to stand, but you also have to make it a design element of the overall experience, and not just plaster this stuff on that makes it at odds. And like you say, it's like with the Maureen, with the servers that you had, in the same way with signage and so forth, you need to do it in a way that enhances the experience, not just feel like you're ordering people around, right? Nobody likes to be ordered around unless you guys, oh, just scan the QR code. It's still the fact that work is theater and employees are on stage, and therefore have to act in a way that engages the audience. And now they just have a different play to produce.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody, you know, you always want to smile. You always want to make eye contact 20 feet ahead. You know, the Disney rule, make sure you look them in the eye. Well, if you put on a mask, smile and don't smile. And now you have to do it with your eyes.
Yeah.
You have to smile with your eyes, because your mouth is covered. Now they're making clear masks, and hopefully we'll get beyond that. But absolutely, Joe is right. There are new rules when you enter a store, and how those are communicated by your employees makes all the difference in the world. The first 15 seconds, 20 seconds, you set the stage for the experience. And you can use those dots on the floor. You can use the stanchions to guide people through your store in the way you want them to spontaneously purchase things that they might not have thought of. But you know, I think taking a step back in time and elevating that guest experience to the levels of, you know, the Daytons and the Marshall Fields in the old days is a real secret to success. You know, if employees know their merchandise, they know how it wears, they know what it looks like, and they are those stylists, and they do it with kindness, even though they're wearing a mask, it makes all the difference in the world.
Yeah, that's great. We had the smiling eyes, we had our pre-call, and since that time I've been practicing that and trying to figure it out. I don't think I've got it yet. I don't.
It's hard.
It is not easy to naturally do. I'm walking around looking in a mirror with a mask. It's just a goofy thing, but I need to figure that out, because you're right. We got to be able to, and it's and back to Kitty's point around the language around these new rules. They come out as rules, and it becomes rather militant in its approach, which I've had that a few different times. We've had the mask shaming moment of, we don't allow you people in here, kind of language that comes at you, and you're like, you mean person who forgot to bring his mask? I'm so sorry. I'll go back and get it. How do we, the brands, and I think everybody should be putting that out into the world whenever they talk to somebody when they get mass shamed. It should be, don't shame someone. Just say, I'm sorry, but we need to have you have a mask on. And if we can't provide you one, we need to, hopefully you'll come back with one. Because the language doesn't say come back. It says get out. We don't want to see you. We don't want to see you again, which is not going to help, right? So I've chosen not to write about that and shame the brands that have done that to me, because it doesn't seem like a good idea. But I've been tempted because I've been shamed a couple of times for forgetting my mask on the way somewhere. Anyway, I'm curious about the retailers because as a sector of the experience economy, which ones you've seen that have done the digital thing really well, or have done the pickup at the door kind of thing, or other examples you've seen in this that have adjusted better than the rest. I've used the Walmart story of movie theaters before, but other ones that you think they're doing interesting things, Joe.
Well, I think I'll mention a couple. One of my favorite experience case studies over the past year and a half, 2 years since I found out about them is a single men's store in San Francisco called Wingtip, and it's sort of like what's the one there in downtown Minneapolis?
Martin Patrick,
right? Which I've been meaning to go visit, and I haven't yet either. But it's sort of like that. The vibe is their theme is solutions for a modern gentleman. And the co-founder of the place, Ami Arad, he had read our book where we talked about what would you do differently if you charged admission. And after much consternation of figuring out how do you do that to a men's store, decided to create a Wingtip club. And the Wingtip, the bottom 2 floors of the old Bank of Italy building, the first floor in the basement with the vault, that's where the cigar humidor is the men's store. And then at the top 2 floors is this club where they have different membership fees, but at the highest level, they charge $3,000 per month $3,000 initiation fee and $200 per month. And it is a marvelous place. I've been there many times. You got a full restaurant, a bar, you've got a pool table, a cigar lounge, you got all these different experiences for men and women. And it's an absolutely wonderful experience. And you go to the store, you learn about the club, the chances you go there go up. You go to the club, you buy more from the store, so it's wonderfully synergistic as well. So when this hit, one of the things the club did, of course, is they did the meal kits, right? We'll do takeaways, and they did online master classes, they did happy hours, and they basically everything that you've heard of companies doing, they were doing it, which I think is very, very, very good. But when they did the meal delivery, I think it went to just sort of a little higher level, and not just delivering the meal, but what are the accoutrements that you need to have a great dining experience as you would at Wingtip, including drinks, including silverware and that sort of thing that they. It's what I call create an experience in a box, right? How do you create an experience in a box? You're going to deliver it. Don't just deliver the goods and services, but how do you deliver something that really creates that great meal and turn that meal into an experience? Another great example is in China, actually. I was just fascinated by this. There's a jewelry company called Ideal. And what they did when they got shut down in China is that the salespeople still went to the stores, but what they did is they got on WeChat and they started broadcasting video from the store of them talking about the merchandise and giving tours and that sort of thing. And then whenever somebody would want to learn more about a particular piece, they would drop down and have a conversation with them, and then somebody else would pick up with the general broadcast out there. So they turned it into a broadcast station, which I think is great. I've long told retailers, if it's worth it, having a person in a store talking to an individual customer about your goods, it's worth it having them on your site talking individually to a customer. Why do you think you just got to blast all your merchandising on the site as if it's an empty store, which is what it is? And so that's a move in that direction. And I think we need, and there are now companies that are providing showroom platforms, like a company called LuxLock, that basically will create a digital showroom where it's like the home shopping network, but you can actually shop individually with the people that you're interacting with. And I think that's the way that brands need to go digitally. Again, if it's worth it in the store, it should be worth it online.
Yeah.
Wow. LuxLock.
LuxLock,
That's
LuxLock, I believe.
that's really fascinating as an indication of what the future looks like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this COVID has accelerated. You know, everybody was dabbling in technology, but it's accelerated it now to, you know, it's here, and we have to figure out how to use it to the best of its ability and to enhance the experience for sure. I've been impressed with some of the ways retailers are bringing people back. Jay McLaughlin does it very personally. They have their store managers call their top customers and offer them a gift card from their Kevin McLaughlin, and make it very, very personal. And you know, they only have so many people in the store, but it makes people feel very special. And it's and there's Tory Burch, I think, is doing something similar. They're doing it on a very personal level, but
Nice.
technology is absolutely on high speed right now.
Yeah. What I'm curious about, because I just thought about Mr. Montez is on the show here, and the fact that he's bringing back the Dayton's project. It's coming to life in downtown Minneapolis. I cannot wait for that to come online, and maybe it has. He'll maybe make a note of that when the Dayton's project comes live, hopefully soon. I haven't heard any other news on it lately, but
What do we know about it? What is the Dayton's project?
the Dayton's project. Well, he should probably jump in with this and come off of mute and tell this, because as I consumed it and went through the experience, it felt like Italy, but in a Dayton's kind of experience. As far as they've kind of blended that, you know, small footprint, food stops and that kind of stuff, using the architecture and the surroundings of the Dayton space. Which, I mean, for us in Minnesota, for anything Dayton's coming back is a wonderful thing. Hey, and there's a link up there so everybody else can look at it. Thank you, Mr. Montez.
That's beautiful, because I think Italy is the best retail format in the world, period.
Really?
I do. It is unbelievably marvelous. It is so vibrant. It is so encompassing.
Yeah.
One of the things I love about it is it includes all 5 economic offerings.
Yeah.
You can buy the produce grown on the ground as commodities. You can buy the goods, pasta and tomato sauce made out of those produce. You can buy the services of a meal. You can buy experience of a dining experience, as well as the cafe that they have in there. And then you can pay admission for a cooking school, which can transform you into an Italian cook.
That is okay. So that's amazing in itself. That I've already loved Italy to the degree of, I keep going there every time we're in New York. We gotta go hang out in Italy. And I've asked a few New Yorkers when I'm there, is it still cool to go there? You know, because sometimes there's things that become a thing and then they're not a thing anymore. And if you're a Minnesotan, you might not know that. But every time I ask, they're like, oh yeah, well, it's still a thing. It's very much a thing. And I've never seen it through the lens of that you're right. It's all the way, the full, all 5 levels. That is amazing.
The vibrancy is amazing. You know, just
yeah.
You spend hours in there, and that's one of the keys retailers need to understand. Is they often try to get people in and out. You know, like restaurants have their table turns and so forth. But the simple fact is, the more time they spend in your place, the more money they spend. And so create a place big enough to handle a lot of people and get them to spend more time. How do you spend more time in there? Purely through experience.
Yeah.
One of the most surprising moments for me inside Italy is that you can book your trip to Italy in the space.
Yep.
You know, I mean, and so for me, it's like it doesn't get any more authentic than that. It's not a retail environment that's trying to be something that it's not. It is truly Italy in this space. And in fact, you can book your trip to Italy at the same time while you're shopping.
It could almost be an embassy every place it goes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Joe, do you work with airlines at all? Do you work with airlines?
You know, Maureen, you not a lot, but you reminded me of one time I did when you were talking earlier about the sort of brusqueness with which the retailers would work. Is I did a workshop a long time ago, actually, I also mentioned this certain airline based in Chicago, I was talking about, you know, how bad their systems were. And later I talked about Ritz-Carlton. And I said, you know, which I think is a great place, and how they train their people and how they provide a very personal experience by remembering their names, knowing their preferences from the database that they have, and so forth. And one of the VPs at the company says, well, wait, he said, you know, if you put Ritz-Carlton's people behind our counters, they'd be lousy too. And I said, yes, you're right. What does that tell you? It's not your people, right? It's your systems, it's your processes, it's how you organize. You're not allowing them to shine like a Ritz-Carlton does. I mean, it just sort of floored me.
That is funny. They actually threw that at you as an
Right.
excuse. And
Right.
You're right. Oops. Wow. Yeah. I used to pick on the airlines a lot. And then Delta has been.
Sorry for them.
Yeah. It's a tough industry. It's for sure. And it's a tough one to provide an experience. Actually, this is back to Joe. When I was at Yamamoto, one of the first experience audits that we did was for Northwest Airlines. And then it was Royal Caribbean after that. But the first one was Northwest Airlines. We went around and audited the experience and a couple of different pieces about it. And they were very fascinated by the concept. It was, of course, this is now 98, 97 time period, about what they were doing. But it kind of quickly became like, well, what can we do to save? And I remember they took the report and then they hired someone in charge of experience. And the first thing they did was they cut the snacks back as far as the number of things you could have. I'm like,
that's a better experience.
I don't understand how that became the first thing you would do. But anyway, as Northwest Airlines became Delta, I've actually been impressed by Delta of all the airlines.
Yeah, and they're actually doing a lot of things before this hit anyway. They're in a good direction about going to creating better experiences, and not just for the diamond medallion sort of folks, but throughout there, including the lighting changes that you saw, the signature scent that they have, and that everything is cohesive between the uniforms and the colors and so forth. And they just it's probably a year ago now, but they announced this sort of amazing technology. They're working with a small little startup to create this, where, I don't know if you saw this, but where you would go up to a screen, right, and that shows you all the arrival times, departure times, and you're standing there, and it says, hello, Aaron, here's your flight. It leaves at this gate. The person next to you, right, I'm standing next to you, it says, hey, Joe, your flight, you got an hour. Once you go to the club over here, and then you'll be able to go to your gate down. And then somebody who they don't know gets the normal screen of all the flight times, scrolling in there. They figured out like a lenticular lens sort of thing, where they can digitally shoot different images at different angles to get the person based on their phone to do it. And I forget what they called it, something reality, but I forget the name of it. But it's sort of an amazing.
So is that in application right now, or is that just
They were going to prototype it first in Detroit, and I don't know where it went before we hit. It was sort of about that time that they're supposed to come out, which actually would be a good time, because you have fewer people. It's easier to sort of test. But I haven't seen that they've verified that.
Yeah.
Wow.
That is fascinating. It's a little Black Mirror-ish, if anybody knows that show. If you've watched Black Mirror, just don't watch the first episode, because then don't blame that on me. I didn't tell you to watch Black Mirror if you watch the first episode. Every other episode's good, but that one's a little bit above and beyond. Yeah, out there. We got to shift gears. Go ahead, Maureen.
The airlines have to figure out an experience to make people feel good before the vaccine is available, and so more than ever, there's so many different varying experiences out there based on the airline and how they're handling it. The one that figures it out and gets people back in the air safely is, I think, going to be the winning one. And Delta seems to be ahead of the pack a little bit on that, at least from what I'm hearing. I have not been on a Delta plane.
Yeah,
I
that's
just
what I
saw,
heard as
I
well.
just saw an article yesterday. My old statistics professor at MIT, he's actually the expert on airline accidents. He can tell you what the chances of an airline accident are, and he, dying and that sort of thing. And so there's an article yesterday, and if I remember the numbers right, he calculated that because of COVID, your chance of dying by flying on the airplane went from 1 in 44 million or something like that to 1 in 760,000. But if middle seats are filled, he said it went to 540,000. Of course, that's about the chance of you dying in a car accident on the way to the airport. People don't understand, what numbers really are, because the chances of dying from this thing are incredibly, incredibly small relative to many things that we just take for granted and don't do anything to protect ourselves against other than wearing a seatbelt or taking a baby aspirin for your heart and that sort of thing. And it was like the same day that United announced that they're going to fill the middle seat again, even though it chances of that. But one of the things that I think companies should do related to the refresh your places part is actually to have what I'll call safety theater. That you do have to make sure your employees and customers are safe. In fact, you have to make your employees safe first, right? That's the preeminent thing, because if they're not safe, there's no way they're going to be able to give a great experience out there. And if they're not safe, well, then of course your customers can't be safe. So you got to do that first, with all the policies, all the procedures, all the clean, all the hygiene and everything. And then you have to make your customers safe. But in addition, you have to show that they're safe, right? It's not enough just to be safe, but people have to get that comfort level with it. Like you said, Maureen, they have to show it and demonstrate it. And then I think where people will then be able to feel comfortable in doing it.
And one of the simplest things, and it sounds so elementary, but if you're in a store and the merchandise is all messy, the cue is the store's not clean.
Right.
And you can be wearing masks, you can have hand sanitizers, but if those, so there's things that retailers could get by with in the past that they can't get by with right now.
Right.
They have to have a clean house.
Exactly.
And that means folded clothes, and that's hard, and that's more staff. And when I've asked him about it, I was like, I went in one large department store, and it looked like a train wreck. It literally looked like a cyclone went through it. So I asked, when I got to the register, I said, did you have a huge sale this morning or something? And she said, no, only 30% of our employees came back and we don't have time to fold clothes.
Oh,
I was like, okay, that does not make me feel good.
No. So what else don't you have time to do, right?
Exactly. Yeah, you have your dressing rooms aren't guarded, you're guarding those dressing rooms, but
right.
I'm not sure that it's, so there's, a lot of
yeah.
things.
That's not the right message. That's unfortunate.
No.
Yeah. I do want to shift gears a little bit, because we have to talk about the Super Bowl a little bit, because of Maureen's role in that, and the fact that it was an iconic event, and the fact that it's an entire orchestrated experience in a moment in time, and all the things that had to go into that to accomplish that, which is probably hard for many of us to even imagine all the moving parts, as we got little bits of it here, at Capsule, and Kitty had some little bits of it where she was, and everybody had little views of it. But I'm curious, from your perspective, Maureen, when you decided to actually step into we are going to be cold, it's going to be January, we're going to call it the Bold North, and everything we're going to do. And then, of course, we lived up to our reputation perfectly. Right? I don't think it got above 0 at all that week, which was impeccably, it's like you couldn't have timed it better. If it would have been balmy, it wouldn't have been good, right? We would have, been, kind of let them down. We didn't freeze some people. I mean, it was impressively cold. So tell me a little bit about that background. How do you came to step into that as yes, we're going to have to be Bold North?
Well, the Bold North was a defensive move, absolutely. Because if we didn't name ourselves the Bold North Super Bowl, we would have been the Ice Bowl, the Tundra, the Frozen. Nobody wanted to come. We heard the whining at the other Super Bowls before and so on. So it was a defensive move. We decided to name ourselves and define that. And, you know, a brand is a promise you could keep. And we were absolutely positively sure we could keep that promise.
Yes.
And the weather,
definitely did.
it was the coldest Super Bowl on record. Morning of 30 below wind chill. The temperature was 4 degrees. But, you know, at Mall of America, we looked at customer journeys from different segments all the time. What was the experience? What were the touch points? How they felt? And the Super Bowl was identical. And if you looked at what happened at the Mall of America every Saturday, it was the Super Bowl. So as I was approached to take on that position, it used every skill that I had learned at Mall of America for 25 years. And we looked at the segments of customers or guests that would be coming to the Twin Cities, from owners to players to people out in the region that would be coming in, entertainment seekers, sports fans, etc. And we did the journey, we did the map, you know, where are they going to come from? Where are their touch points? What are they going to see first? And we had 10,000 volunteers who made the experience. I mean, they were absolutely positively hands down what made the experience. But when you think about touch points, little things like there are, you know, 1,600 private planes that land for the Super Bowl, and they land during certain time periods. So you have a special hub that go in to schedule their landing time. So we knew who was coming and when. And our volunteers were at the airport with warm hats, warm mittens, cocoa, caribou coffee, caribou cocoa. And that hadn't been done before. You would have been shocked at how many people grabbed those hats that came to Minnesota without hats. And one owner's wife was hysterical, but she shocked. I just have to tell us, she absolutely, I think there's PTSD still going on with our volunteers. She landed at Signature. They said, would you like a hat? She was freezing cold. She was from a Southern team. She took off her wig and put on the hat. No, you don't have to do that. You can win. Anyway, but it was, and then when they left, we knew that the last goodbye was as important as the first hello. And that was just one segment. We did it at the main airport. We did it in many different places, but we gave them these really great health bars that were made here. We gave them candy, the mousse candy. What's that brand? Why can't I think of it? They're the most wonderful women that developed them. It's like mousse, the mousse candy. Oh, they're gonna be mad at me that it's not with me this morning. And then we gave them blankets from Sleep Number, and to get up there. So our goal was that people would come back and visit Minnesota, and tourism would grow. And 83% of the people new to this state said they'd be back. Maybe not in February, but they would come back. So, but it was all about the experience. And so, yeah.
That's great.
I have a question on that, because I guess I have never confirmed this, but it's my understanding that so all of these people that came from southern areas and didn't really realize what 30 below was going to feel like, because they'd never experienced it before. So they come, all of a sudden they're like, oh my gosh, I need to buy winter gear. They go out and buy winter gear. They're now ready to go home, and they don't need this Canada Goose coat anymore that they've splurged on, or whatever they might have purchased. And so somebody, it's my understanding that it was maybe one of the hotels or something that
was a volunteer, an individual.
Okay, that said, here's an opportunity to donate, and then now these great garments are going to go to people in need. That was one of the most beautiful, I think, unexpected experiences that was just somebody's great idea.
Yeah, it was wonderful. They said, you don't need these. And we put boxes at the airport and in the hotels, and we collected, I don't know, it was like 8,000 coats or something. It was crazy. And people didn't need them from southern markets. And those were the ones that aren't coming back, I think. those are
If they let their coat.
The candy, I have to say, it was drooling mousse, which is phenomenal candy if you ever get it.
Which
And
Amy Murray mentioned on the chat,
Yeah.
drooling mousse.
Yes.
Yeah, drooling mousse. It was great. So, you know, but that was just one segment. That was the private airport segment. We did it at the main airports. We did it in the stadium. And if you treat people nice, people are nice back. Even the Eagles, they did not destroy anything, which, you know, they have a reputation. And we were all worried when they were in the game. They were absolutely great. And the only thing they stole were our rules sign from the stadium. The behavior guidelines.
Oh.
Which was
Of course they would. They had to keep their reputation. They had to keep their reputation, right?
That'd do something.
That'd be something at least. But didn't they win? If they didn't win,
they were happy.
Yeah.
They were very happy.
If they weren't happy, they probably would have destroyed our city. Nothing against the Eagles, but really everything against the Eagles as far as we're concerned.
Well, we were not, you know, it was very much of a sad day when the Vikings lost to the Eagles 2 weeks into the game. And so to be able, and I watched, this was absolutely the most fascinating. Our volunteers had a website, Facebook page, and I was watching during the game the morale it just was plummeting. And I thought, oh my gosh, how do we rally 10,000 people and get them excited about entertaining these guests who are now not very nice to us?
Right.
And they did it themselves. 2 days later, they were pep talking each other and saying that it's not about the Eagles, it's about the experience. It's about showcasing Minnesota. This is why we're doing it. We didn't care who played. And they got themselves out of the funk.
That's impressive. The best line that I saw come out of that was basically your ex-wife is marrying her new boyfriend in your house. That was the line. It's like, oh, that kind of stings. Yeah, that's not good. Anyway, Joe, you were going to say something to that.
Well, you know, we of course have that reputation for Minnesota nice, which is, you know, is part of it there. I was reminded when Kitty was talking earlier about wearing the face masks and having people heads down because that you lose that Minnesota nice. It's more like being in New York City where people don't make eye contact as a matter of rote. But I think that, you know, that too will come back. We'll figure out those ways to be able to do it. Even Aaron will figure out how to smile with his eyes, you know, in the next week or two with enough practice.
Thank you, Joe. I will.